Hello, everyone. My name is Nathan Kellenpathe. I am the Product Communications Specialist at Leica Q3 USA. Thank you so much for joining us today. A little bit of housekeeping. You'll see that in the window where you're seeing us right now, there is a chat function, and we would love to hear where you're tuning in from. This is also a great opportunity for you to share and ask your questions throughout the program. Without further ado, I would love to introduce you to our guest, Kylie Shea, dancer and photographer. Kylie, good to see you. How you doing?
I'm so happy to be here with you today. Thank you.
Happy launch day. It's such an exciting
Yeah.
time. We finally get to see the work that you've been working on, and the world, I feel, is not quite ready. We saw today your video, and now we get to see some of the stills that you created today. I'm really excited to show that.
Yay,
Before we
thank you.
begin, I would love to hear and for you to share a little bit more about yourself for those who don't know you.
Well, my name is Kylie Shea. As Nathan said, I was born and raised in Southern California, and this is where I learned to dance. And then I moved up to Seattle in 2008, and I was dancing in a contemporary company called Spectrum Dance Theater. I lived in Seattle for some years, moved to Portland, and then came back to LA to pursue my career in entertainment while simultaneously pursuing my career as a photographer, which also began in 2008, actually.
Fantastic. I want to start this program by sharing a little bit of the work that you created before you had the chance to shoot with the Leica Q3 And we'll
Mm.
start off with these images right here. You are known for your self-portraits, and I believe that the image on the left is the image that kind of started this project. Would you mind sharing a little bit more about how this project began?
Absolutely. So I was living and working in a remote location during 2020, and that's how I first started working with Leica cameras. And the image that you see on the left, excuse me, it was my very first self-portrait with the monochrome. And I actually did this all with a 12-second timer. So I had propped the camera up on a little stool with some books and water bottles to keep it in place. And I hit the shutter and I climbed the tree and I hit my pose all in 12 seconds. And really that is the first photo that really started this all. And then the photo that you see on the right is a portrait that I took this past December at Tacoma City Ballet, where I filmed the foot to foot video. Yeah.
I'm going to share some more images right here from your self-portrait series. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about what incited you to start this project? You know, this is a
Mm-hmm.
situation in which you're both photographer and subject at the same time. Is there
Yeah.
something specific that draw you to this project?
Yeah. I mean, well, this image that's up now that you see was also taken at Tacoma City Ballet. That's actually where I did the last shot that we zoomed in. But, you know, my self portrait series was born at a time where I really felt uh, unseen and unloved, not just with what was around me, but really with myself. So the self portrait series started as a way to reconnect with myself and just repair my relationship with how I, saw myself and grew confidence and also just in my ability to visualize things and to create, the follow through of having a dream and making it become a reality has really been a beautiful backbone of my self portrait series. And so many of them are focused much more on the emotion versus the technical aspects of it. Obviously, there are many where my legs are up or I'm doing extreme positions, but I really try to bring something more, especially to the self portrait series, because you can't get more intimate, just you and the camera, and it's safe to be vulnerable. And I think that was another thing that my self portrait series has allowed me to do is just to feel safe in my vulnerability, and then also uh, sharing it with the world in hopes that it inspires other people to do the same.
That's incredibly powerful. And I'm seeing already people from the chat, as we look at this image in black and white, one of the questions is, was the M monochrome your first time working with the Leica? And what was your experience with photography before shooting with this particular camera?
Love that question. So the M monochrome the Q2 and the SL2. I started working with those all simultaneously, both with photography and with video. So it was a beautiful, fun crash course in learn it all. Prior to that, I had shot Canon personally. I actually started doing headshots and portraits beginning in 2008. And so up until that time, headshots was always a side passion and also business for me. And then I also worked with a dance photography company. So for a few years, I was traveling the US every weekend, doing 12-hour sessions with young dancers, yeah, and that was a beautiful experience as well. So I do have, many years of photography under my belt. And then this self-portrait series with the Leicas began in 2020.
And you continue this series as well, as we can see on the slide here, shot with the SL3. This is some of the work that you shared with us with the camera. I love the composition that you've chosen for these images and the color as well. Do you mind showing a little bit more about how you achieve these images?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, I had so much fun. It was actually, I hadn't reunited with an SL at all until the SL3 project, which I love so much, such a special camera. Excuse me. These images were so fun and also so challenging to get because I was still using the clicking the self timer instead of the Photos app, which has also been a game changer. We'll get to that. But yeah, this is actually all done with natural light as well in a studio with black walls. But there was sunlight coming through the window. And when I was working with the dance photography company, a lot of it was based around fabric. And that's something that I actually had done on my own before I started working with them. So for me, bringing that into this photo series with the SL3 was really full circle and so much fun. And I've always loved the color orange. It feels, really empowering and uplifting. So I also wanted it to kind of feel like fire. And,
Yes.
I think the wrinkles in the fabric aided to that, which is nice.
Definitely.
But yeah,
Absolutely. The
I
movement
love this series.
is so, I mean, you are static, but there's still movement in the shot, which I think makes the shot so much more interesting.
Thank you. Thank you. That's definitely, I love that you said that. That's another big intention that I have as a dancer. I think one of the things that drew me back to LA and to get back into the TV and film world is that I love live performance so, so much. And there's something so special about the fact that it only exists in that moment. And I also craved the ability to create work that could, last beyond me. And so one of the things that I love about photography is that you can capture a moment that will, continue to live on, and it captures such a special moment in time. And especially with movement or emotion, I do always have the intention of wanting to create images that evoke feeling that you can feel, even if I'm, laying somewhere doing something, that you can feel the energy within the picture, which is actually also something that my ballet teacher taught me. And it's that you can go and stand on stage with your back to the audience and just stand still, and your energy alone should be strong enough to be able to evoke emotion out of the audience. And there's still movement in your stillness. Yeah, that makes sense.
Definitely, 100%. And I think actually that's just a great transition into this shot right here, because you're merging your love for dance, ballet, with photography with this image right here, and of course the new Leica Q3 43. I want to ask you a couple questions on the camera, your experience. First of all, what was your first impressions of the camera when you received it?
I was absolutely blown away. I think I remember getting in touch with Nathan and just telling him how excited I was. Like, oh my gosh, this is going to be such a game changer. I think for me, one of the biggest, I was like, oh, Nathan. I think one of the most basic things for me is just it's so lightweight and accessible. And the fact that it's an Apple lens on this beautiful camera is really such a game changer. And I also love the, macro capability because often I'm doing wide self portraits and, the ballroom or out in nature or everything. But then I also like to come in close to see the details of my shoes or tattered, tutu or sweat or just something on the face. And so this camera's ability to really adjust as my creative mood was shifting was amazing. And then, I usually have about 18 bags with me on any given day. So having a whole extra bag just dedicated to gear is often a bit complicated, especially with traveling. So this camera was just my little companion, just strapped around my neck all through the airport and everything. Obviously, I kept it safe in TSA, but its ability to just transition with me from the studio to outside to the theater to walks to hikes, just knowing it's so durable and also so responsive was really so exciting.
There's a shot in the video that I love in which you have a bag and you're taking out your shoes, and then in that bag there's also the camera. And it really, I feel like that connection, that moment really sets the tone for the rest of the video. But as we go through these images right here and the self-portraits that you created, I believe, looking at these shots, at least for me, there is still that connection that you have in your self-portraits. Of course, you're holding the camera in these particular images right here, but did it take a little bit of time for you to adjust to this system since you were shooting with the M and the SL prior, or did you feel right at home because a lot of the same design elements and the menus and things like that are also very similar?
It was the latter. I immediately bonded. I think, it's interesting for me, every camera, especially every Leica camera that I work with, there's this really beautiful, bonding process that happens, and it doesn't always happen right away. For me, it took a little time with the SL3 to get comfortable, to refamiliarize myself, and then to really tap into its full capabilities. And there was one session just prior to the images with the orange that you'll see that that moment happened, and then the sky was the limit. And so with this camera, I think because of everything that you said, it was a pretty seamless. I picked it up and I felt like I had been shooting with it all along. And also just the 43 millimeter perspective really felt so at home. I usually shoot between a 28 and a 50. So the 43 was just the perfect focal length for the story that I wanted to tell. And often with the images that I'm seeing, both when I'm taking pictures of others or my self-portraits. So the shot in the video where I'm taking the camera out of my bag is 100% true. This is what always happens. The camera is always with me, whether I'm on tour, just going to the studio to train, often even to the gym, because you just never know. And I get inspired at all different times of the day and night and locations to continue my photography journey. So the camera is always with me, and for the longest time it was the monochrome, and now it is the Q343.
I love to hear that. And I think that's a great transition into showing your work from this project, starting with this shot right here. As we look through these images, and I'd love for you to share a little more about the behind the scenes of these images, but what was the element that really inspired you to move forward with this project? Was it, I believe that in our discussions, this was something that you've always wanted to do, or you had plans for this in the past. Why now? Why is this project coming out now for you?
That's a great question. My very first conversation with you, Nathan, I knew right away that foot to foot and this story was absolutely the foundation and the first story that I wanted to tell with Leica in this way. And it's something that I live every day. It's just part of who I am, how I am here today as a woman and an artist. But it's sort of my story, but it's our story, and the story is bigger than just me. It's about legacy. It's about my teacher and my teacher's teachers and her teacher's teachers, and just the idea that we're all connected, just like the roots of a tree and the branches that we grow from that same original place and foundation. And then obviously filming at Tacoma City Ballet, which is the ballet family that I inherited, Miss Erin Sarah Jolie, who is like a mother to me and has been so instrumental in just, nurturing and guiding and supporting me, especially after my teacher passed away in 2009. So it felt like the natural place to tell this story. I couldn't see it anywhere else. And also, just a side note, I love teaching so much, and also my teacher and the way she taught me about dedication and reliability and really showing up My life at this point is just too chaotic to be able to commit to teaching in person in any one place. So I love guesting. I love doing master classes, and popping up whenever I'm able. But for me, since I'm not teaching all the time in that way, photography is one of the tools that are so important to my work to be able to carry her legacy. Um, so it's just a different way to carry on the legacy versus teaching ballet in the more traditional way. If that answered your original question, I'm not sure.
Totally does. 100%. Absolutely. I want to spend a little bit more time specifically on this image right here, which is one of my favorites that you shared with us. And, one of the things I really appreciate about your work, Kylie, is that there's a lot of different elements, but specifically, I think that you're focused on geometry, on shapes, on lines, and utilizing your own body to convey those aspects. It's such a unique way to do photography. And this is still a self-portrait, right? We're still in that theme that you're continuing the series with this new camera here. Could you tell me a little bit more about this particular shot and how you decided to be in this position to take the final frame here?
Absolutely. I love, again, that question and also this particular portrait. I feel like this image is really true to the origins of my self-portrait series. And, a lot of the work that I've shared is in the same vein where it's, a simple studio and it's really my body that is providing the shape. Setting up a shot like this is very difficult. It's a lot of trial and error, especially to get, the perfect position and also while still hopefully emoting into it, which again is so important to me. So, I look at this picture and I see, okay, I'm almost in frame, but is it my foot or my hand on the floor? Is it the one that's holding my leg up? And then is my bun a little off? And then what I've learned through my self-portrait series is nothing is going to be perfect, and to love the flaws and trust the moment. In the same way that in a lot of the improvisations that I share, there's things that are maybe not technically perfect, but you can feel the heart, and you can also feel when you're trying too hard, or in an image when I was trying to do too much and it wasn't honest and it wasn't pure. So I think this is the particular, I probably have about 15 or 20 tries at this shot to try to get it perfectly right. It was also, the angle of where the tripod was and just making it kind of match the video as well as we could, again, just in the different systems that we were using. But yeah, I think this particular move came from part of the improv that you see in the full video. So I was coming up from the floor, and then this, natural pose of that was the improvisation that I did. And so I did the dance first, and then the still came afterward, which is actually oftentimes what happens. The movement inspires the photograph, and then sometimes it's the other way around. But in this particular shot, it was the movement and Aislinn, my incredible DP, coming in to find this moment. And then I said, oh, okay, well, that's the picture.
I'm wondering if that happens with you pretty often where, you want to do a self-portrait and you're trying out different motions, different movements. Do you turn on the video function of the camera and then kind of look at what it looks like on the camera? Or do you kind of know, my goal is to get to this movement to take the shot, and I have to get the timing right. How do you do that process?
Usually when I'm doing self-portraits, I'm not even putting on the video function. It's only movement. I think what I'll do is I'll freestyle just on my own, sometimes just not filming anything or taking pictures of anything, and I'll feel in the moment of the movement positions that are really speaking to me, and then I'll photograph from there. Or sometimes I'll have a really specific mood or feeling that I'm trying to capture. For example, the one that you showed earlier where I'm in the silhouette of the window just standing there, that was I was wearing one of my ballet teacher's leotards, and for me, just a simple V plus, the arms across the chest, is a really simple and classic move in the classical ballet world. And so that shot in particular, I I knew right away that that was a shot. And for me, that one was just trying to get myself lined up perfectly in the window. And again, since I wasn't using the Photos app with the monochrome, that was probably about 50 of those images till we got it right. But yeah, it totally depends on the session. And again, sometimes I'll have an idea for a shot. For example, with the SL3, I haven't released this picture, but there's something that I was trying to do with long exposure, and I didn't end up getting it in the way that I was happy with. So I moved on to something else. But the setup of that shot led me to some of the other portraits that I ended up sharing in my final project. So it's really, for me, just being present in the moment. And again, always doing everything with truth. My ballet teacher always used to say, art is truth. And without truth, there is no art. So it's something that I hear in my head all of the time, whether I'm dancing or photographing.
I love that quote. Let's look at some more images here. And you mentioned the Leica Photos app, and this is another of my favorites here. And we were working on as we're working on your video, I think that one of the concepts that you brought that was really interesting is the idea of the self timer, and you taking your time to set up these shots. One of the questions we're seeing in the chat here is your usage of the Leica Photos app. Could you share a little more about how using this new technology and this new feature set probably might help you, I'm guessing, with your work here?
Absolutely. Well, funny, I actually should share some of the video footage from this particular shot. So because you're only seeing our lower bodies, I had my phone just propped up into the, strap of my leotard and my shirt. And so this image I had very clearly in my head from the beginning of the project. I knew I wanted to be standing in first position. Again, so much of everything in ballet begins in first position. And I'm actually wearing my ballet teacher's pants here, which I wore in some of the series from the SL3, but these are her pants that she gave to me many years ago. And so wearing these pants in my most beloved point shoes, which are absolutely destroyed at this point, but I just can't let them go. So they're still kicking. And then having the girls behind me in their, also in their point shoes, standing in the tutus, the beautiful tutus of the Tacoma City Ballet. I mean, those have been there probably as long as the ballet has, which is just over 40 years now. And so, everything that you see here has history. The floor, even though they actually just got a new floor put in, which is beautiful, but the older floor is just underneath it, which I love. But the literal blood, sweat, and tears of everyone who has ever danced in that room and contributed to the legacy of Tacoma City Ballet, and all of the other legacies that make up the ballet family. I feel like that was my intention in that photograph. And then again, as you see here, there's 3 images in this series that are all in first position, because it is where all ballet starts. We all start in first position, facing the bar, straightening your knees, squeezing your thighs together with your core pulled up and your shoulders down and all of the things. But no matter what age, whether it's your first ballet class and you're a young student, or you're an adult excited to, try the art yourself, it all starts in first position. So to me, this particular image here where you see Miss Erin with one of her students, it is the actual transformation of tradition and technique and legacy with her standing next to the students. So this is actually one of my favorite pictures in the series, just because it is foot to foot, quite literally.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's a quote that you say in your video where you say, first position is the same on every continent. And I think that speaks tremendously about the connection that you have with other dancers that you may not even know, but they also had the same training, or they had the same standards that you had to deal with in the show here. That's incredibly powerful. We have some more questions in the chat here. Did it feel strange to photograph yourself at first? And having done this project for so long, with whom are you more at ease, a photographer or yourself as a photographer?
That's a great question. Oh my goodness. It's interesting. I actually felt really comfortable photographing myself, more timid for what I would see in myself. I think I had done so much work with other photographers throughout the course of my career before the self-portrait series started. And also there were so many sessions I did where the images that were delivered maybe weren't my favorites, or, you know, really understanding that art is subjective. And so what the photographer loved might be very different than what I loved. And so empowering myself to learn how to do it myself. And then, you know, I wasn't intimidated by a technical standpoint. It was more of having the courage to really see myself. You know, there was no one to go through all of the raws to present to you only the polished images. You know, you see the good, bad, and the ugly, and also the honest and raw and true. And so I think that was the biggest thing in my especially in the beginning, because my self-portrait series started at a time when I was really disconnected from my body, not very healthy. And so, you know, just again, regaining confidence and love through just trusting myself to know that there is beauty and vulnerability and honesty, and that it didn't matter, you know, how much I did or didn't weigh, how lean I was, or, you know, having been in a profession where your body is your instrument. And obviously there's a very specific aesthetic that you are taught from a young age that is supposed to be the way. I think it was also very freeing through my self-portrait series to celebrate the body that I have and the way that it shifts, you know, as I grow and learn and age and go through different phases of life, and also as I train for different projects. Yeah. And then I do feel that it's actually harder for me now to work with other photographers, because I know, you know, if I know what lens they're shooting with, if I know what the lighting is, if I know the angle and the move that I'm doing, if they're not necessarily in the optimal place, especially for dance, you know, if I have my leg up to the back in arabesque, if the photographer is right in front of me and my leg is behind me, I'm knowing that, you know, they're not necessarily getting the shot that I was thinking they are getting. So it's been a beautiful, interesting journey now, as I, you know, still work with people here and there, or for different jobs and opportunities that come to me. But it is interesting to have more knowledge on both sides of the camera. And then it also helps, I think, my ability to communicate with whoever I'm working with. And also, especially in video, to be able to adapt, because I can tell, you know, if the photographer is on the floor doing something, then the move that I was asked to do maybe isn't working. So I can introduce and say, hey, because you're down there doing this, what if I try this instead? So I think, you know, it's been empowering and actually helpful across the board, both in obviously work with myself and then when I'm working with other people.
Absolutely. We're having some amazing questions here in the chat. Here's another one. It's interesting how your main discipline is based in movement, and you complement it so well with the medium based in stillness. How do they complement each other in your experience? And is it the contrast, or is there more in common found between those two art forms than one may think?
I love this question. Wow. You know, I think something that I touched upon a little bit earlier, it's interesting because in ballet, we're actually taught, especially in the classical world, as you're training for a variation, that you are creating shapes. And your teachers will often say to you, picture, 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 picture. So you're dancing with the idea that you are constantly making photographs. I think for me, I love that. And then that also felt infuriating, because dance is movement. And so it's not just about those pictures, it's about all of the moments in between. And so, you know, the transitions, not just in dance, but in life, the transitions and the journey is everything. It's what I loved so much is my teacher would really focus on, how do you get to the picture? You know, how is your leg getting up to your ear? Because if it goes up to your head with no meaning and intention, then why the heck is it there? And you know, so the intention behind the movement, therefore the intention behind the stillness that you see in the photographs, again, I hope carries into what you see. And that's why I think in powerful dance images, the ones that are captured in motion, you know, it's stillness, but you can still feel the energy of the photograph. And yeah, even if you're just standing with your arms here, you know, in first or second position, that in the stillness, there's still energy that's flowing through your fingertips and out of your neck and out of your eyes and your toenails and, you know, every little atom in your body, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I have another question for you from the chats. You know, you were shooting with the monochrome camera. The first question is, which lenses were you using with that camera? And with now shooting with the Q3 has this changed or freed you in any way if the focal length that you were using was different than what you're using currently now with the Q3
Love that. I was using the 28 and the 50 with my little M monochrome. I now have the 35 on my SL3, which has also been a whole game changer. And then now with the 43, you know, it's interesting. I feel like depending on, well, obviously, what lens I choose to bring with me, if I'm just taking my monochrome, if I'm only taking the 28, knowing that the capturing still the intimacy of some of the self-portraits that I like to get, you know, I'll be able to be closer still while showing more of what's behind me versus the 50. But yeah, I like the limitations almost of only having one lens with me. And so I think that's part of the reason why I love the Q3 is that the 43 is the perspective that I'm working with and I can't just switch it, you know? And so, yeah, it's really adapting to the moment and the tools that I have with me to create and inspire whatever, you know, self-portrait or again, session that it is that I'm working with on someone. Hopefully that answered the question a little bit.
Yeah, and you're totally right. I mean, the 43mm is a very natural perspective. It's very close to how we see the world, you know, with our own eyes. And I don't know if this happened to you, but for me, when I was shooting with that camera and I was about to compose either a portrait or a landscape, I didn't have to imagine what the effects of the lens would give me. You know, if you're using a wide angle lens, you're like, okay, I'm gonna have to step back or step closer, or it's gonna be distorted. Or if I'm using a telephoto lens, I'm going to have to do those similar kinds of things. But with this lens, I just saw something and I knew that I had to maybe walk 5 steps forward to get the shot because again, it's that same perspective. Was that a similar experience for you?
Absolutely. And it's interesting that that's a big part of where the Photos app kind of changed the game a little bit for my self-portraits because I got so used to the manual focus on the lenses that I was using because none of them had autofocus. So I knew depending on which lens I was using, how, you know, depending on what f-stop I was shooting at, how close I could be. Is my toe, you know, in focus? Is it my leg? Is it my elbow? Or, you know, I got really used to that. And so by having the Photos app, that allowed me to, you know, obviously sometimes creatively have to hit the timer and then toss my phone away or just hide it, you know, in my tutu or something. But the ability to see or even touch focal points with the automatic focus was helpful. I still did shoot some of them manual just because that was, you know, how the self-portrait journey started. But you know, on some of the pictures that you see up now on the screen, actually the one of just my legs, funny enough, is I think I got this the second day that we shot the video. We only shot for 2 days, small hours, and we shot a bunch of footage in this light, which it was the very early morning light, and the beautiful sun was shining down from the windows. And we shot a whole improv sequence and actually didn't use any of that in the film. But I did get this still, which I really loved how, you know, the golden tones of the room. There was very little editing in this photo. This is almost straight from camera. Just the way that the, you know, again, the 43 up on my little tripod was able to capture the details and the shadow in this particular image was different. I don't think I had really shot that perspective before, and it just kind of happened again naturally in the moment, just kind of letting the light fairies guide me. And then the image that you see on the right from the theater, I think I had the phone in my leotard, in the front of my leotard. So this was really fun and also very tricky, trying to get as centered as I could in the beautiful Pantages Theater in downtown Tacoma. And also, as you can see, there's a couple things in this picture that drove me a little nuts. with nuts, which is the speakers are a little off, just a little,
Mm-hmm.
but enough that I
Sure.
see. But what mattered most to me is that, I was in the center of the seats with the aisle, and then obviously with the lights above. But again, it's one of those things where no picture is perfect. And for me, it was the intention of capturing, this moment alone in the theater when no one's there, which is in my particular, in my experiences. And I think a lot of dancers and artists will share in this sentiment that 99% of the journey is done alone when no one's
Mm.
watching. And that's where so much of the immense growth and the important work is done. So being alone in the theater and capturing this image, I felt like, again, just hitting a very simple but classic pose and fifth position on point. With the tutu, Fifi, my tutu, she also comes with me everywhere. It's the camera and Fifi. But capturing that, as symmetrically as I could, while using the Photos app, I would go like this and then wiggle around and then hopefully hit the pose for the 1 second I needed to.
First of all, thank you for sharing that. That's incredibly powerful. I want to stay on these two images because I think they speak to another topic that we want to talk about, which is light. And one of the questions that we've been seeing in the chat a couple different times, people have been asking about what type of light do you prefer? It seems like there's a lot of images shot with natural light. You did mention during your self-portraits that natural light was a dominant part of your photography. But we're seeing that again here with these images, not only on the left, but also on the right with the stage lights. What are your thoughts on using natural light or constant light? Do you prefer that, or do you also like to introduce some external lights, like flashes and things like that?
Love this question. In my professional work doing dance photography, especially when I was traveling and working, I was using external lights. Obviously, we were in studios inside, so that was all added flash and other lighting equipment. For my self-portrait series, it's almost all primarily based on natural light, or again, the natural light within the space, even if it's a horrid overhead fluorescent light in the studio where I grew up, which actually yields itself to some really interesting work. I don't think any of those are included here, but I've shared a lot of those on my social media. And then in the theater here, we were very privileged to have had a couple of stagehands who were helping us. And so we just had them, it's actually just the natural house lights. They brought up a couple of the stage lights that you see there. But again, this is all primarily how the beautiful theater looks just as is. I didn't want to bring in any extra lighting for this. I wanted it to be as natural and just honest as possible, whether it was the images or the video, just to really showcase again the purity of the moment, because I feel like for my vision I didn't need any extra external lighting help. And also to that end, the spirit of my self-portrait series is so much driven by the light around me. So it's really, my family and my closest people can attest to this. It drives them crazy oftentimes. It's like we're talking, we're walking, and then all of a sudden Kylie's over there in a tree. What's she doing? There she goes, see you later. So oftentimes I get really sidetracked by beautiful light, and sometimes I'll photograph myself. Sometimes I'll ask whoever I'm with to be my muse. And yeah, I think it's just part of the being present in the moment and using what's around you versus having to fabricate things. We live in a world where so much of what we see is not real and not natural. So I think it's really important to me in my work, both as a dancer and as a photographer and all the artistic mediums that I practice, to keep it as real and authentic as possible.
And you continue to work within this space. This here is one of my favorite shots that, just absolutely stunning. You have this incredible depth of field that's happening. I'm guessing you're shooting wide open or something close to that. And what you described a couple minutes ago about capturing stillness, but also capturing movement. For me, this is right in between of the two. I don't know if you are standing still or you are in the process of doing a movement. And I think that that's what makes the image so powerful, because Of course, photography and images stop time, but it's this ability to take an image like this and, for me at least, my brain can imagine the next movement that you make after this
Mm.
particular shot, or the movement that you made right before the shot. And I think that that is the element that really is, again, extremely powerful. Do you mind commenting a little more about how this particular shot was made?
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for saying that. This series, there's a few more in the series in this particular leotard and tutu before I changed into the white leotard that you see in the video. But the stills that I took in uh, this image and some of the other ones from this series, I was finding my way with the light. So actually, a lot of what you see, these were not accidents, but I was moving and I would, hit the timer and then I would actually move into the pose. These weren't necessarily planned. So a lot of it was just making sure that my, focus and where I was wanting to draw my eye was in place and setting up the frame that way, but then also moving within that. And so I believe this image was a hitting the button and then going into the movement. So I wasn't just standing there holding it. And I also, yeah, I love what you said that, if my teacher were here correcting me, she would say, make sure that you feel the length in the back of your arm and the length in your neck and feeling like there's water droplets going off of your fingertips, both in the one above your head and behind your arm. So, it's funny, I can look at a picture like this and kind of self-correct of, okay, what are all the things that I should be doing here? And then also, letting that go, just to capture the honesty of the moment. And then I think this one too, because I was moving, I wasn't quite sure where my head was going to be. And as a performer, I get a little carried away oftentimes. So perhaps my neck would have gone up a little bit or whatnot. But yeah, I think a lot of these images from this particular series in the theater were just exploring movement in the frame, again, at the focal length that I was shooting, and just seeing what happened naturally versus trying to have such a tight rein on it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the depth of field really helps with the intimacy, where the stage is there in the background. Oh, sorry, the chairs are there in the background, but they complement the movement that you're making. It helps with context. If you stop down even further, I think it would take away from that intimacy that you're creating here with this shot, and even more with this shot right here. And I'm looking through the chat right here, and Kylie, you're getting so many compliments from your work. I'll just read one right now. Light and details seems to be really important in your images. Wow. Shapes and pictures, constantly making photographs. So beautiful. I love the tension of movement and stillness.
Thank you. Guys, don't make me cry now. Almost there.
I'm guessing this particular shot was a continuation of what you were describing with the previous shot, maybe just with a tighter crop, or was this actually a crop of a larger image, perhaps?
So this one was taken after, I think I got a couple of the wider ones. I actually started with the ones at the end of the stage that you see, transitioned into the slightly closer one that you see. And then this was a very specific wanting to go into using the macro capabilities of the camera and really just capturing the intimate moments, again, that in the theater you don't really see from the audience. And also this backlit perspective, which I love. I love kind of seeing a hint of the silhouette while still being able to see some of the detail in the tutu and the fingers, and then seeing the lights and the seats, even though they're all blurry back there. But to have all of these as a cohesive series together, I think was, again, just important to me to show. It's important to me to show things that the audience doesn't always get to see, again, whether it's the grit and the grind and the, details, especially when they're not pretty. Again, I think part of why I love to just come in and capture these intimate moments is because so much of what you are bred to do as a ballet dancer is, smiles. Obviously, there's intense emotional pieces too, but it's your job is to take people and transcend this reality and take them to a place to help them escape, for any given amount of time to a magical land that doesn't necessarily exist here on Earth. And so in the training and preparation to do that, you have to give it your all. And what you are experiencing is not that, the beautiful place that you are taking people to is not typically what you are feeling in your point shoes, or in your muscle fatigue, or in your shortness of breath, etc. Obviously, being an athlete, it's so intense. But I think that's one of the things that I want to bring into my photography, and as I continue to document myself and photograph other dancers and artists, is just to showcase that the reality and the rawness of it. So again, going back to this picture, even though it's simple, I feel like anyone that has trained, you see fingers, but the amount of years that go into correctly placing those fingers is a lifetime. And the tutu, Fifi's still kicking, and but she also holds the blood, sweat, and tears of the rehearsals. So this photograph, even though I see a lot of light, I also see a lot of dark, and I think that's where the deeper meaning of seeing this close, intimate portrait came into play for me.
I can't wait for people to see these images in their full resolution whenever we have the chance to post them. And one of the things I really appreciate about this particular shot is how delicate everything is. What's happening in this image right here. But then also at the same time, as a very technical person, nerdy person myself, I then looked at your tutu, and it's like every thread of that dress is perfectly rendered, right? And so you have this mixture of delicate, the posture that you have with your fingers, and then also, of course, how delicate the tutu is. But then as you go a little bit deeper and deeper into the image itself, you can see what you're describing, all the different threads that make up the tutu, and I think that for me, it's a documentation of your story, a documentation of ballet dancers in general, and all the different things that you had to do or have to do to be at this level, to be where you're at today. There's so many layers to this image right here that I'm feeling, and it's stunning.
Thank you. I did love this series, and again, I think it was really important. I shot these before we moved into the latter shots that you see in the video, again with the white leotard, but these moments had a really special feel because they just felt very intimate. And again, it was me capturing myself, just getting familiar with the space. I hadn't been there since I performed, or I guess I didn't perform last Nutcracker, but I hadn't been in the Pantages since December. And so just I have many years of and much history performing there, but being alone in a theater like that is a whole other experience. And so it was fun to play with different perspectives and document it in real time as I was getting comfortable just being on the stage by myself with no one there at Baseline.
One of the things I love about what you shared with us so far is, you're documenting you on the stage and you teaching others, but these images right here that we're going to see is something I really appreciate as well. The process of stretching, everything that happens before you go on stage and documenting that process as well. And this particular, you're mentioning about your shoes, and, they are well loved. And you can see that there's so much history in these shoes. You can see it, and that's such a powerful image to have, considering the story that you just told us. We're getting continuously more questions from the chat. I'm loving it. Another question is, any tips for others who want to photograph dancers with movement? Are there any mistakes to avoid, or thing non-dancers may not know about or think about?
I love this question. Thank you for asking it. I think one of the immediate and most important things that I can share, especially when photographing dancers, is we spend our lives training for very particular ideals in terms of positions and technique. So I would say when working with dancers, making sure there's a dialogue between you and the dancer you're working with to make sure that the technicalities of what you've captured are correct. I've had it happen more times than I would love to say that, the the framing and the lighting and everything is beautiful about the image, but the timing could have just been, 1/100th of a second off. And so, your foot was wonky, you weren't exactly in the right position. So I think, just again, out of respect for not just the dancer, but for the art form, when you're working with dancers, if the intention is to have a more abstract mood and feeling, that's different. But especially when you're photographing classical ballet, making sure that the images that you love are also in alignment with the technical representation of the art form is really, really important. Yeah, and then the other thing I would say is timing is everything, especially in movement. So just having good communication, 1, 2, 3. Are you clicking on 3? Are we going on 4? Is it 3.5? And I think that's where, getting comfortable and having that open dialogue is really, really helpful in sessions with dancers. Hopefully that helps.
People are asking you, how are you sharing your work? Any plans for a book? And they say, please say yes.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Well, for now, I have primarily shared my self-portrait series on my social media, specifically starting on my Instagram, which if you look back, I think around in 2022 is really when I started the, monochrome grid that you see. And so almost every monochrome picture you see on my Instagram account is a self-portrait taken with my hand monochrome. And yes, I would absolutely love to share a book. That's definitely been in the back of my mind. Also something I'm really excited to hopefully offer soon is a limited selection and edition of prints from my work. So ironing out the details there, but that's something I'm really excited. I've never done that, but I think it's I've had enough conversations with people who have been so kind and supportive of my work, saying, I'd love to hang this in my house. How can I do that? So again, it means so much to me, and to be able to give people, a particular image that makes them feel something. I know that's how I feel with all of the artwork and photographs in my home. So to be able to provide that to other people, if it inspires them, is something I'm very excited and happy that I'm going to be able to offer soon.
We're going to unfortunately end our conversation with these last 2 images right here. And
no tears, everyone. I'm so happy.
No tears yet, at least. Yeah. But speaking about tears, we do have a phrase that is inscribed on your foot, which says, save your tears for the stage, if I can read correctly.
Yes, absolutely.
Could you share a little bit more about this particular phrase, what it means to you? And I'm sure it's not by coincidence that it's on your foot.
Yes. Okay. All right. I take it back. This one might set me over the edge. So my ballet teacher, Mrs. Patricia Stander, who again, I first took class with when I was 8 years old. And it's something that she whispered to me one class. I was very shy as a child, and especially in ballet, I didn't speak at all. So she'd just only have to whisper, and I would whisper back. And I was crying one day, and she came over and, said, "Don't cry, my darling, save your tears for the stage." And that stuck with me since I was 8 years old. And that became my mantra in life and in art. And so when she passed away in 2009, I got this on my right foot. And, in honor of her, and I actually wrote a children's book to explain the story. And I crowdsourced artwork from my amazing Instagram followers. And so the book features work from 75 artists from around the world, representing 74 countries, or no, yeah, something like that. I'll get the details to you, but it was a book that I wrote in honor of her. And this phrase really to me is not about keeping your tears in by any means. It's about connecting with your emotions and your pain and your joy, and using all of that to empower you and to fuel you both to be a better human and also in your artistic endeavors. And so that's, I got this on my foot. It's my first tattoo, and it's, I think, the most meaningful one. Obviously, it's constantly being battered in the work that I do, and I love it because it's just a constant reminder again of the legacy of my teacher that I'm carrying on. And yeah, it's the platform and foundation for everything that I do. And so she's right there with me on my right foot, my power foot. That's the right leg you always see going up, my better leg up.
Hmm. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And here's a very similar shot with your shoes on. And as we wrap up this conversation, first of all, people want to know, where can they see you perform? That's the first question. And then the second question is, what's next for you in the coming months, artistically, photography, dance wise? We'd love to hear.
Oh my goodness. Well, I have a couple of shows coming up later this month, so I'll definitely announce on my social channels and on my website anytime I have performances coming up. I am a freelance artist. I also just finished touring with Lana Del Rey, which was an incredible experience. I was actually performing a lot over the course of this last year and a half. Um, what's next for me? Definitely, you know, Prince, and just continuing my incredible relationship with Leica, and offering my work in all of the ways that I can. And a book is definitely interesting. That would be a fun endeavor, so I'll keep you posted on that. But for now, there's a couple of smaller performances that I have coming up that, again, I'll share on my social channels and on my website for anyone if it's in your area. And yeah, I do so many different things that on any given day I'm wearing a different creative hat. So yeah, there's a lot coming up, but I think just taking a moment to share the foot to foot, all of the imagery and the video is just kind of where my focus is right now, because this project holds everything to me, my passions across the board, and again, continuing the legacy. So that's where my focus is.
Well, Kylie, I wanted to spend some time and thank you. Thank you for being vulnerable with us. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, and showcasing your creativity with us. We can't wait to share more of your work as the coming days and weeks, occur. And of course, this is a great time to share your Instagram as well to see more of your work in the coming months. We'll be posting her work on Leica Camera USA's page very soon. And we invite you to go see her video. If you haven't had the chance to go see the video at the beginning of our program, it is now on YouTube. And yeah, looking forward to hearing all the feedback from people seeing your work. But yeah, thank you so much for your time again. And yeah, it's always a pleasure talking to you, Kylie.
Thank you so much, Nathan. And thank you to everyone for your beautiful questions and for being with us today. And again, this project, just this moment with Leica and with you, Nathan, and just with the whole Leica family means absolutely everything to me. So I couldn't be more humbled and grateful, and I can't wait to keep creating. So thank you all.
Folks, you can learn more about Leica Camera USA and Leica Academy through the links on the screen. We have an upcoming talk on October 20th at 4 p.m. Eastern with LA-based photographer Robert LeBlanc. And you'll be able to sign up for that through an Eventbrite page that will be up very soon. Kylie, folks, thank you so much, and we will see you on the next one.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.